So let's talk if you can talk just a little bit about maybe your background in the restaurant industry, and then maybe a little bit about the Master Sommelier exam. For those of you that are watching that don't know, Bobby Stuckey is a Master Sommelier and has been since 2004, correct me if I'm wrong?
Yes.
2004.
Yes.
As he mentioned a little bit briefly, talked about his 4 restaurants that he has, Boulder and in Denver, is that right?
Yes, 2 in Boulder, 2 in Denver, and it's interesting, they're both right next to each other on both. Like, so there's 2 restaurants right next to each other in Boulder and 2 right next to each other in Denver.
Interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, maybe your background and your history, like tell us where you started in the hospitality industry, and tell us maybe what led you to the Master Sommelier exam, which I myself am working towards.
Oh, well, congratulations. I started bussing tables in August of 1983. I will be bussing tables tonight, so not a lot has changed in my 37 years in the hospitality industry. I just have more gray hair. But I started off just, quite frankly, I was a punk rock, dyslexic, challenged student in high school. And I remember the first Friday night I was getting trained at expediting. I was a back waiter and I was getting trained at expediting, and all these tickets were coming in on a Friday night. And the guy training me kind of had a nervous breakdown and shut down. And I just had all these tickets in front of me and started moving around. And it almost seemed like it was going slow-mo for me compared to the guy who was supposed to be training me. He was having a meltdown. And I thought, wow, I've found my tribe. This is a great place for me to be, because I felt good. Like I was doing something that was hard and it worked out for me. And I just kept going down that path, so went from a bus back waiter to an expediter, and then I became a front waiter, and I just loved hospitality. And, when I was in college in Flagstaff 30 some years ago, Flagstaff, Arizona, there wasn't really a career path for us. Like lots changed. Like now it's people want to talk about careers. We want to talk about it so much that there's so many options of career paths now. People can argue which one's better. There was no career path really. And I remember seeing a flyer for the quartermaster sommeliers and the intro exam. I took it in 1994. They only had like a few locations in the country. They did it in like San Francisco, maybe New York and Chicago. And so I chose the one in San Francisco, studied all year for it, went out there, and just the mere course itself was a great beacon for me, because it made me feel like, oh, this can be a professional career. And because of that, taking that initial course in 1994, it even further stoked my fire that, hey, this could be a lifelong profession. And I feel so lucky that restaurants found me and all that.
So we are going to be offering on July 18th all of these wines, the Scarpetta Prosecco, the Scarpetta Pinot Grigio, the Scarpetta Barbera de Monferrato, as well as the Lambrusco and the Frico Sparkling to go with our family meal that we are doing on Fridays and Saturdays. There's going to be a link to this video. And so maybe we can pivot just a little bit, and you can tell us a little bit about Scarpetta wines, and maybe a little bit about like why Scarpetta wines, why Italy, what turned the corner from hospitality and restaurants into the wine industry.
Great, I would love to help. So, our restaurant Frasca, our original restaurant, is based on the cuisine of Friuli Venezia Giulia. So this crazy region as far east as you go and as far north as you go, next to Slovenia, below Austria. And when we opened 16 years ago, very few people knew where Friuli was, even less than do now. And we had this, there's a custom in Friuli. If you enter a Frasca, which is a neighborhood restaurant denoted by the branch over the front door, you might have a little Tayut, a little cut of Friulano Bianco. And we wanted to Tayut our guests. So we started with, in 2006 vintage, making less than 100 cases of Friulano. So that's kind of how Scarpetta started. It was meant just to be something to accompany our restaurant in Boulder. It's grown since then, thankfully. And that's how Scarpetta started, because we have a restaurant rooted in the cuisine and culture of Friuli, Venezia, Giulia. It's interesting. Next week, our book gets released, our Frasca, our Friuli Food and Wine book, which is a book co-written with Meredith Erickson and the photographer William Hereford, based on that region. So that'll be exciting to come out. So that's how Scarpetta started. We started just making the indigenous grape Friulano. Now we make a many different varietals, and look forward to talking to everybody about them.
Fantastic. All right. So can you talk a little bit about reopening Frasca and maybe a little bit about the challenges that you guys went through there?
Sure. You know, we've now reopened all 4 of our restaurants. So we feel very blessed to be able to have 4 restaurants open, because I know a lot of people did not get to reopen all their restaurants. We sat on the sidelines for a little bit just so we kind of looked at our governor's gubernatorial guidelines as that should be the base minimum. That's the minimum that you're going to do. And so we took those guidelines, spent about 50 hours of training on the staff to take those guidelines and make them ours. So take what the governor wanted and added extra layers of touches to make a more safe environment. You know, I hear people complain about guidelines and restrictions all over the place. They've just got to realize we're in a different time. That's why we need this IRC bill, the Restaurants Act, to go through. But we need to embrace these restrictions and guidelines. Yes, are they hard? 100%. But take those guidelines and add to them. People need to be more restrictive to themselves. I know a lot of my peers hate when I say that and call them out for that, but the governor, whatever state you're in, remember those guidelines should be the base minimum. And if people are cheating the system, they're just being short-sighted, and it could be detrimental for that community.
Agreed.
Because as long as we have COVID, it's like my neighbor's I'm seeing him pull out of his driveway right now. He's a physician, and he's like, look, at the end of the day, you can have a spike like that just if you let your guard down. So,
wow. Yeah, it's a completely different time, I think, in our industry, as we can all agree. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Prosecco, which I'm sure that if you're watching this video or you've seen anything on any kind of wine at all in the store, you'll see lots and lots of Prosecco. So maybe tell us a little bit about the Scarpetta brand Prosecco.
Yeah. So I look at our Prosecco as how I think of Prosecco from when I was a sommelier at the Little Nell 25 years ago. That's how Prosecco was then. Prosecco historically was a quite dry, sparkling, aromatic white wine from the Veneto. It's still from the Veneto. It's still very aromatic. It's just not as dry for most people because yields got higher, residual sugars got higher. This is harking back to the old style Prosecco. To give you some simple math to work with, this has about 4 grams a liter of residual sugar, which is very, very low in sparkling wine, compared to like most of our peers are in that 13, 14, up to 17 grams a liter of RS. So,
and this would also put it in the brut category if it was from Champagne.
Yes.
Percentage of dosage, correct?
Yes, exactly. 100%. And it's vintage dated, which less than 1% of all Proseccos are vintage dated. So you know that we're working on keeping things fresh and very straightforward and transparent to the vintage, and then quite dry. So this is Prosecco that's meant to be the quintessential aperitif. You know, light, dry, aromatic, great with a bowl of chips at happy hour in the Piazza San Marco, great with a light salad, fish, or just on its own.
Fantastic. Smells wonderful. And by the way, it's about 2:30 here, so it's totally time to drink a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And then let's talk a little bit about the Pinot Grigio. I think everyone probably knows that varietal as well.
Yeah, that's a varietal most people understand, but maybe get upset with, because they forget that Pinot Gris, where Pinot Grigio came from in France, is a very noble varietal in Alsace. It's one of the four most noble. And sometimes in Italy, we don't focus on the nobility of the varietal like we should. To me, something is noble because it should be able to transport you. A glass of wine should be able to take you on a trip to where it's from. So in this case, this Pinot Grigio, Friuli is an interesting area. There's two major soils that we think of. If you looked at a map of Friuli, the western side of Friuli is this very light, white, pebbly soil that all came out of the Carnic Alps. And those light, pebbly soils give maybe a little bit more delicate lift to aromatic white wine. And then you have another soil to the east in the Collio and Colli Orientale. That soil came out of the Adriatic when the tectonic plates shifted to create Africa as a continent. Those plates shifted, pushing all this millions of years of seabed marl up onto that plateau on the eastern part of Friuli. And then we call that soil Ponca, P-O-N-C-A, Ponca. And Ponca is exactly like what you would expect. It is a more sturdy, more powerful soil than the light rocky stones. It gives the wine almost a salinity, a minerality, not unlike Kimmeridgian soil gives to Chablis. So you get both of those in there, and I think this wine really speaks to that. You know, you've got that quince and tart apple, and then you've got this great minerality. I've seen many people drink a glass of Scarpetta blind thinking it was Chablis, and that's a noble call.
Wow. So definitely, I've had this wine a few times. It definitely has that drier, cleaner, like what you were saying, that
Yes.
mineral style that I think the people that maybe started drinking Pinot Grigio, 15 years ago, this is why they loved it so much.
Yes.
For sure. So a little bit, maybe let's move on to the red, the Scarpetta Barbera, the Monferrato.
Yes. So this is Barbera from Piemonte, from Monferrato specifically. Maybe a little backstory before we talk about ours. If you think about Barbera, it's planted quite a bit in Piemonte. But a lot of times in America, we see Barbera d'Alba, and those are Barberas planted in the Langhe, which would be Barbaresco and Barolo country by Barolo and Barbaresco producers. But historically, or especially lately, the last 20 years, with each year, vineyards are pressing the less expensive varietals, Dolcetto and Barbera, out of the core of the vineyard holdings and leaving that core for Nebbiolo to make Barolo and Barbaresco. And I'm not here to argue that. That's really a very, very noble varietal. I can see that being done. But in Monferrato, Barbera is the queen or the king, however you want to look at that. So it doesn't need to out-elbow Nebbiolo. So you have these great sites in Monferrato that get to solely be planted to Barbera. So Barbera, to me, is the gateway drug to Italian red wine drinking. It is that varietal that a total Italian geek can lock into. But if you're new to drinking Italian red wines, there's a flavor profile that works for you. It's a low tannic varietal. It's not about tannins, but it is about mouth-watering acidity. Think of it like fruit. When you eat a Palisade peach from Colorado in the summer, when it's really ripe, that peach just runs down your face, very low acid. When you have a plum, when it's perfectly ripe, it's like this. It still has that great fruit acid. And I think this Barbera is like that. But it's ripe, it's round, but it's got that great plum-like acidity. This is a producer. We make this with Fabrizio Iuli, all indigenous yeast, done all in cement or botti, so there's no new wood on it. It's just meant to be a pure expression, no makeup, just a pure expression of Barbera.
And it's in my opinion, one of the great values, I think, right now in Italian red wine. And I think that our customers agree, because this has definitely been one of our best-selling red wines that we pour by the glass. So the last two that we are going to be offering as a family pack. So we're going to offer the Prosecco for sale individually, the Pinot Grigio for sale individually, the Barbera for sale individually, or you can do the family pack, which is what we're encouraging people to do, which is going to include the Lambrusco as well as the Frico, which are both bottled in cans. So first of all, I want to say that if you're having pizza anytime in the next couple of weeks, please go to wherever you can find this Lambrusco, pick up a can of that and serve it with your pizza, because it's such a great combination with the acidity of tomatoes. I can't tell you what a great combination those two things are together. So can you tell us a little bit about the Lambrusco and about the Frico Bianco de Sparkling?
Yeah. So let's go to Lambrusco. You're so correct on that. It is one of my favorite wines with pizza, because the mouthwatering acidity is perfect. It plays with the tomato sauce great. It's fantastic. While Lambrusco is historically from the Emilia Romagna outside of Modena, it plays so well with pizza. It's such a good pizza wine. It's been for over 15 years one of my go-tos with pizza. So this is Lambrusco done in a can. What is Lambrusco? Really, Lambrusco is a frothy red wine. Can be dry, could be off dry. Made in Emilia Romagna. This is the first one in the United States that was done into a can. We love this. It is something that people can really have fun with, their Friday night pizza or their Tuesday night pizza. Exactly. You can pour it right in, or you can just drink it right out of the can.
And let's see the last wine that we have.
Yes, Frico Frizzante. Because it's in a can, think of it like Prosecco, but a little bit softer bubbles. You can't have the same power of bubbles in a can as you can in a bottle. Sparkling wine bottles have enough strength in the glass to be able to maintain that bars of pressure. In a can, it would just blow out. It would be very dangerous. So it's a softer bubbles, a little lower bars of pressure, meant, just like the Lambrusco. You can drink it out of a can, you can pour it into a glass and dress it up. It's great with a bag of potato chips and a picnic. It's so many good things about it.
Well, lastly, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking your time out of your, it sounds like, incredibly busy schedule, especially with all of the Independent Restaurant Coalition things that you have going on. And we are definitely excited to hopefully be a part of that very soon. How do we get that going here?
So you go to www.saverestaurants.com, and that's our website for the IRC. So the interesting story is the IRC is for us in the independent restaurant world, our collective voice for independent restaurants in advocacy for, at the moment, us getting through COVID. It will, I am sure, exist after that. It did not exist until March 16th. That is our website. You can sign up there. There's a toolbar that can walk you through the last two bills that we just got presented, one in the House and one in the Senate. Yeah, that's
great. Well, that's really good, because that was definitely something that I was interested in. And I think it's a really great opportunity for a lot of the independent restaurants around me as well, because here in downtown New Haven, we really don't have chain restaurants and larger groups and things like that. We're all pretty much, independently owned and operated. And this is great for us to have an opportunity to join in and be a part of that community with you.
Yeah, great. We would love it. Okay.
Thank you both again.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day, you two.
You too. Bye, Bobby.
Bye-bye.